My name is Firasat Ali, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our Angel Group meeting. I'm very excited to have Adam Draper join us today. Adam is the CEO of Boost VC. For some of you that may not know, Boost is an accelerator, and they work with startup companies to help them develop into more stronger companies. They've been around for about a couple of years-ish.
2 years.
2 years. And in that short time frame, they have accelerated nearly 50 companies.
67.
There we go.
Good.
Excellent.
Yeah. Who's counting me?
Adam is not a stranger to the investment world. He's a fourth-generation venture capitalist. His father, grandfather, and great-grandfather, they were all venture capitalists. In fact, your great-grandfather started the first VC firm on the West Coast. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Adam has invested in companies himself. He has, founded and started companies, and now sits on the board of 4 companies. He's been widely covered. He's been covered by Wall Street, Forbes, TechCrunch, and been on Fox News and Businessweek as well. One of his passions is to build the next Iron Man suit. That is cool.
Not the un-Iron Man suit. Like, there isn't a previous Iron Man suit, so it would be
the first one.
The first Iron Man suit.
So I'll try it out. Just don't want to be the first one trying it out, but I'll try it out.
Done.
We know a lot about the Draper family and their huge successes. Let me start off by asking you, how does coming from a family of investors, how has that helped shape your investment strategies and ultimately help you start Boost?
Good question. So my family's like really cool. They, my great grandpa started Draper, Gaither, and Anderson. I highly recommend my grandpa's book, by the way. I might as well put the plug in now. It's called The Startup Game. It's about the relationship between an entrepreneur and a venture capitalist or an investor in general. It's a good read, and it tells sort of this story. But my great grandpa started Draper, Gaither, and Anderson. My grandpa started Draper Johnson, and then Sutter Hill Ventures, which is actually still over there-ish. And then my dad started Draper Associates, which turned into Draper Fisher Jurvetson. They all added a certain aspect to the sort of venture spectrum. I'd say, my great grandpa was first. My grandpa was, by the way, my grandpa was actually sort of an associate for my great grandpa at his firm. But then my grandpa was sort of in that first gentleman's club that was started as venture capitalist. And then he was actually the first venture capitalist to go to India, and he started a firm called Draper International, where they were able to, they were the first ones there, so really they were competing with no one else, so they returned 16x their fund, and they did pretty well, and they returned the money before the money was in. It was like one of those types of deals. And then my dad was the first one to really set up a global network where he was able to start all these funds all over the world. And so what's really fun is that I've been able to see all of these little different, I've been able to learn from a lot of really great venture capitalists and investors. And so it did incentivize me to probably become an investor, but really what got me to become an investor, so I have that experience where I'd seen all these great entrepreneurs as sort of heroes throughout my life. And then, but when I started Boost basically because I loved, so I started a company 6 years ago, actually Option Admin. We were just reminiscing. I met with Option Admin about 4 years ago when I was running a company called Expert Financial. And we were trying to help later stage companies raise capital online. What I learned during the process of building the company was that I made every mistake known to man. And now, as I started mentoring companies, I realized I was able to help them not make the same mistakes. And so that was sort of the emergence of me wanting to become an investor. I hadn't really considered it until I found this need to really help entrepreneurs not make mistakes. Basically, my whole job right now is like saying, no, that will set you back 6 months. Don't do that. And then focus is the other thing that I say a lot. Those are basically my 2 things. Like, you can do my job if you say those 2 things over and over, and to every single company. So that's sort of, I'd say I was able to really learn a lot from my, I guess, bloodline, but more than anything, my family is very encouraging of lots of different things, and it's sort of like, if you're going to do something, do it well and do it big. And so when I left Expert to found Boost, I just went full force into it, and I'm really fortunate, actually. We'll probably get into this, but I picked Bitcoin as our focus about 18 months ago, before it was really an industry, and now it's an industry. So I got to sort of partner my brand with Bitcoin, and we were able to sort of grow as quickly as Bitcoin did. So that was pretty fun for us.
Excellent, great. So I'd like to talk a little bit about Boost. And before we get into details, just understanding the Accelerator model on its own. As I understand, it's a fund, right?
Does everyone know what an accelerator is, by the way? Or incubator, accelerator? Okay. Yeah. But it's like, the difference between an incubator and accelerator, by the way, is like, incubator is the space, accelerator is the program. So like having someone who actually runs the thing. And that's my definition. I don't know. Lots of people sort of use the same word. So Boost, just to give a quick high level, it's a 3-month program. We provide housing and office space for the companies in downtown San Mateo. We invest $10,000 to $20,000 for about 6% of a company in order to get them to a level that you guys might look at. And generally, they're first-time entrepreneurs. That's not always true, but we're very good with them when they are. We instill them with a network and some knowledge from my learnings and my team's learnings over the last couple of years, and me starting a company 6 years ago. Once a week, we bring in speakers. So we've had everyone from Mark Andreessen to Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, Logan Green, CEO of Lyft. And then we also bring in mentors throughout the program that will help each company sort of grow and get better. That it's a well-balanced group of investors and entrepreneurs. So just to give you a general idea, it builds towards a demo day. Our next demo day is October 30th, where we have hundreds of investors that all these companies get to pitch. Sorry.
No, that sounds great. I just want to understand a little bit about the making of the accelerator before. So for this fund, you go out and get investors, build this fund, and use that money to finance these companies. Can you talk a little bit about the fund itself? Who are your investors, and what are they looking for out of this fund? Is it like any other fund, great rate of return, or are they really looking for some early access to companies or things like that?
Good question. I'm not going to talk about who my investors are, just because that's
a general idea.
I haven't announced any of that stuff yet. But what I'd be happy to talk about. So their incentive for investing. It was interesting. While I was pitching my fund, I thought, hey, we're going to invest in. I was raising a fund for a really long time, and I thought, investing in 200 companies over 3 years and owning 6% of the companies was like incentive enough for investors to want to be a part of it. I had actually demonstrated a couple sessions already, so I had already really learned from a couple. I wouldn't say I made mistakes necessarily starting the fund, but like I learned a little bit, like I could run a program-ish. And so while I thought that was really what was going to be interesting about an accelerator, and it turns out it's really about the optionality of just knowing what else is out there. It's sort of like a lot of my investors really just wanted more data points on what different sectors were launching, what types of companies, what opportunities were there. And a lot of investors do this just so that they get a wide spectrum, and then they're able to sort of pick winners from all of these different accelerator funds or micro VC funds or whatever. And I found it was really interesting for me to go through the process of raising money, because that's sort of what that was the major thing that I learned, was that it wasn't really about the fact that we were going to get relatively, for a small amount of money, like get into a lot of these companies. It was more the data set, the intelligence that we were able to source.
So obviously this is a pretty popular model now.
It became really, yeah. Well, it's also popular to start a company.
Paul Graham started Y Combinator several years ago. It became like the thing to do, right? There's a huge influx of accelerators and incubators. In fact, there's probably one for each technology segment in each geographical area. What do you think where we're going with this? Is there some kind of accelerator bubble where it's going to pop, or where do you think we're going with this?
Well, it was really interesting because there was this big first boom when YC was sort of starting to get a little bit of success. There were like a lot. When I started, actually, there were 80 accelerators just in the Bay Area. So like I was going into a area that was already very populated, and my decision was made for various reasons. I felt that I could really run a program. I was actually inspired. Like I felt that there was a way in which by providing housing, you really create this close network where the companies can learn a lot from each other for over a 3-month period of time, and it really throws like gas on the fire, and they really race against each other in a like collective. It's like they work together, but they're working on separate concepts, and so it's a really interesting thing that ended up happening. So that ended up being a big thing, and then having a Bitcoin vertical was very, very valuable for me. But back to your question, which is where are we going with accelerators? I actually love that there's so many accelerators. It means that there's a lot of people who are trying to support entrepreneurship, support these entrepreneurs who are all trying to start companies. I think they're all different models. Like if you're going to jump into the space, you're going to have to take it from a different angle. Like for us moving into Bitcoin and providing housing, like you have to be different enough to really stand out. Otherwise, like other incubators, accelerators who are already well known will be taking most of the quality companies. You also need to know that you're going to be really working hard to try to get deal flow. That was a really, it's one of my favorite things to do. We call it the hunt, but like trying to find the good companies or just good entrepreneurs, because ideas change, people don't. Like finding the good people is really what we focus on, especially at our stage. And it's amazing how many different things you have to try in order to do that. Like we've tried everything from hiring like campus intern people to like source deal flow, which if you're wondering, college kids are relatively lazy, and then to like it turns out AngelList is a very good source of deal flow. It turns out Twitter, Facebook, social's pretty powerful. We've learned a lot over the last we call them tribes, so 4 tribes. And yeah, so if you are, I'd say for accelerators, it's not necessarily that there's a boom. Yes, it's sort of Darwinism, like good ones will still be here, and the ones who aren't as serious about it will fall by the wayside.
Let's talk about deal flow. You mentioned deal flow and Boost specifically. Maybe you can give us some numbers. What kind of, how many startups apply to Boost, and out of that, how many actually get into the program, and then how many of that actually end up at Series A?
So it's really interesting numbers. Okay, well, our process is, we go out, we try to get as many, but we try to spread a wide net. But still, it's about 53% of the companies we actually accept are companies that we have tracked down, not companies that applied on their own accord. That's sort of like, a majority of them still are companies that we sort of either had a relationship with, were like a referral of some sort, or we like tracked down. Those are like the 3 things that fall into that. But actually, it might even be higher now. It's getting pretty high because our network's getting bigger. So the companies that went through the program refer us more companies. And so that's a really valuable thing. So we get about 600-700 applications now, which is 10x up from when we started, which was 60 applications, and we accepted 7 companies, and now we're accepting 26 companies. We accepted 26 companies into this tribe. I think we're at near our maximum capacity as far as like, we try to provide a very hands-on experience for these companies. We try to really help them. I need to know, if you go above like 50 to 60 people, you start to not remember people's names. And so I really want to be able to remember everyone's name, know exactly where their company is at any given point, all of those things. And so I don't think we'll be able to go really above 25, 26 during each tribe. But it's really, really, really fun. Okay, so from that, we moved down to, by the way, out of the 67, only 7 are out of business over 2 years. So we're pretty happy about that stat. After Boost, 80% of them raised more than $100,000. 25% raised more than $1 million. I don't know, like people say Series seed, Series A, Series B, like it's all getting convoluted now because people are raising like $10 million seed rounds, and so I'd rather go with like number. A lot of companies who have raised above $1 million raise sort of in the 3 to 4 range. That's sort of what I've been seeing as far as our numbers go. And after companies who have just been around for 2 years suddenly are actually creating value in the ecosystem. And as long as you've actually been focused on solving the problem you set out to solve, you'll do something. And so that's really what we try to focus on with our companies. So it's been
and what kind of companies are applying? I mean, is this for everyone, or do companies need to look at certain factors to determine if going through an accelerator is right for their business?
Obviously, my incentive is to say it's for everyone. But I think there is a lot of value that comes from an accelerator. So what we really provide is a lot of, there's guidance, there's mentorship. Really the important 2 things are a network and knowledge. So we jumpstart companies by throwing them into the middle of like, I have a really great investor network, I have a really good entrepreneur network. They can just get to know all these different people who might be able to help them. You never know when you're going to like stumble upon the idea that actually makes your product work well. And so just by talking to as many people as possible all the time, that's really valuable. And then knowledge, I mean, you really want to, accelerators should be started by people who have either been investors before and seen enough companies go through the process, or someone who's been an entrepreneur before. It was really valuable for me to have started Expert Financial and made every mistake known to man. I'm able to really help people not make the same mistakes. Second-time entrepreneurs, you would hope that they have already instilled themselves into a network of some sort because they had started a company before, but if they had not, it's still crazy valuable. Those are really the things you should think about.
So what is it that you're looking for? I mean, is your evaluation criteria kind of sort of similar to what angels and VCs would use? Or I mean, what is it that you're looking for?
It's very, very similar, but it might be earlier. So we're like looking at people, character, like, so the normal things are market, team, idea, like those are the important like screens that all investors should be going through. And is the idea feasible? Is the market big enough that even if they take a small piece of it, like it would be a business? And then the team, like, can they actually execute on this? And the 4th criteria that we look at, and actually I sort of treasure above the other 3, is called scrappiness in our, I call it scrappiness. It's really like commitment, or, so like if the team is out of money, living in their parents' basement, would they still be doing this? Is sort of the question I ask myself when we're reviewing the companies. And if the answer is yes, like we really want them, because we don't give a huge amount of money and we want them to live forever. Because my true belief is if you're in the market for 5 years, you've done something to create value in the market and you have a brand.
So did you mention, how long is your program, by the way?
3 months.
3 months. So once you get through the screen, you evaluate, you get inside. Are these companies just kind of coasting along, or is there? I mean, what do you expect to see from them within the 3 months?
Well, so one of the things that we do, and actually, if any of you are investors, it's a really good thing to do with any company, is we sit them down and we talk to them about like what their goals are over the next 3 months, which is sort of an obvious thing that we should do. But then what we do is we figure out what the core concept of their business is going to be, and we say, if they don't have a product yet and they're building the product, we say you need to have a product in the next like 3 weeks. And it turns out people are generally able to make a minimum viable product. The problem is perfectionists. Perfectionists, like they never launch a product. They never like that's a really you need to like rip the perfectionist out of them early. You say, okay, in 3 weeks you have to have a product up and running. Then because you can test it in the market, like you need something that you're testing in the market. Then we help them pick one metric. So if you're tracking multiple metrics, you never know which one you should be focused on. These are teams of like 3 people. Two people, 1 person. Like they can't be tracking 50 different metrics and trying to make all of them go up. So you have to find the core metric of what your business really operates under, and it's not revenue. Revenue is what this metric should drive revenue ideally. And so like sometimes it's just as easy as like customers, like number of customers you have for paying you, number, that sort of thing. But sometimes it's a little more complicated, like you go into the metrics and you figure out exactly what levers to pull. But we picked one, and then every week we have them update everyone in the session that number. And so over the course of the program, ideally we see an upward trend where if you are focused on one metric and that is all, you can drive that number up. You can figure out which levers to pull to make that work. And so that's something that we do, and it generally works pretty well, and it establishes their focus. And we try to put them in the best way, like the best position to have a good conversation with an angel investor or a venture capitalist so that they're ready to actually maybe raise funding. And if they're not ready, like people ask, like I tell them that they're not ready, like they shouldn't be raising capital. They're not ready for that money. And we actually recently, I had to email our whole crew because like 2 companies were like starting to raise funding and like they were ready for raising capital. And then the rest of them sort of panicked into thinking that they should be raising money. And it sort of defeats the purpose of an accelerator program if all you're thinking about is raising money, because we're supposed to be pushing you to your limits on product and making you show growth and progress. And raising money is like a huge distraction. Huge, like your entire focus ends up becoming raising money, and that's a really difficult thing to handle. So
obviously there's a lot of advising and mentoring going on, and so let's talk about that. One of the important aspects of joining an accelerator is obviously to benefit from the ecosystem of advisors and mentors. Can you talk a little bit about who are your advisors and mentors, and what kind of skill sets do they bring to the table?
For the mentors in the program, we really wanted a well-balanced sort of experienced early entrepreneur and then like associate level venture capitalist and very experienced investor. And so we have this, that's sort of what we ended up with the breakdown of it. It's a lot of, there's about half entrepreneurs, half investors, half younger entrepreneurs and investors, half older entrepreneurs and investors. And having just a wide range of like brains really helps the companies understand. It's really funny, everyone gives different feedback to each company, and like there's a lot of conflicting feedback. And so you have to, like as an entrepreneur, you have to figure out which feedback to take. We do a full day where every company gets to meet every mentor. And we do speed dating for mentors, and so it's like 7-minute pitches for every single one. And it's a really chaotic day that I take a nap after, and it's but it's really, really fun because they suddenly feel like, oh man, I met all these awesome people and they all gave me feedback telling me that this was wrong and I should be doing this. And then they have to reassess exactly where their product's going. So everyone from my grandpa, who's been in venture for 45 years, something like maybe more than that, to we have a 22-year-old who runs a profitable gaming company called Mino Monsters named Josh Buckley, who I invested in when he was like 18 years old, and he's like one of the most impressive entrepreneurs ever.
So for some of the consistent mentors, I mean, what kind of bandwidth are you expecting from them? Are you, how deeply are they involved with each company? Are they kind of
This is actually a great question because you can't, so when you're creating a mentor program, at least as an accelerator, like you don't want to burden the mentors. You don't want to be like, hey, you have to spend like 10 hours a day with all of the companies. And so I created a system that like mentors could sort of spend as much time as they wanted to with the companies, but also they felt like they were connected to Boost so that they felt like they should help the companies. And I don't know how I did it, it just worked pretty well. I asked, I have a curated group, like I asked them specifically and I gave them requirements. So I did say like, in order to be a mentor for Boost, you have to agree to like spend 10 hours at Boost over the 3 months. 10 hours, like 3 of the hours is spent on mentor day, and then like, that's like an hour a week for the rest of the program, or less. It's not even that much. It's very few hours. And so making it not burdensome, but also making it valuable on both sides, where you want mentors who are really want to help. Turns out people who are relatively successful like to help because they had someone help them at one point. And so that's one of the things that we've been able to really dive into. And it's we try to pick good people. I always try to pick people, A, I really like, and B, who have helped me in some way. And so if I feel that they could have helped me, I feel like they could help the entrepreneurs.
So what do you tell these mentors? Are they kind of influencing the journey of a startup, or are they kind of hand-holding to some degree?
It's sort of for the entrepreneur, it's more someone that they can ping and update. And so the requirements are 10 hours throughout the program. Like you're required to spend 10 hours like for Boost. Then be responsive by email. And then connect when it's necessary. And like those are the 3 requirements. And that it's pretty simple and it's worked pretty well.
I want to get to a next topic, which is a lot of people in the room would be interested about, is how does an accelerator work with an angel investor?
Angels feel comfortable backing Boost companies, feel comfortable with me and my advice, and then ideally I get advice from the angel investors too, because I don't have all the answers despite the fact that I think I do. And yeah, so that's really how we try to. And if there's a company you really want to meet, like we provide an intro, it's sort of nice.
Yeah. So you said angels that would be comfortable in investing in Boost companies. So as I understand it, the company goes through. Yeah, sure. No, but I want to kind of understand the flow of the process here. Yeah. So the flow of the process is, the company goes through the accelerator, the 3 months, whatever, come demo day, and that's when they're looking out for financing, either through angel, VC, or someone else, and that's the direction of flow. Does it ever happen that, company gets some seed money or some angel money and then comes to an accelerator?
Yeah, actually way more recently. But we have a couple companies who we ended up being the first money in because we accepted them, and then they immediately raised like $2 million, and then they went through the program. They hadn't actually entered the program yet, and they've raised all this money. That wasn't it's not as common as I would hope, but it is happening more and more. People do get plugged into entrepreneurs really just want a network that they can get into, and they really want to meet people who can help them. And so that's what we try to make happen. We try to help companies grow faster than they would on their own. A lot of people who might have raised capital before might be running out of capital. That happens too, where they haven't exactly found their product market fit, and they're not desperate, but they're sort of thinking maybe they're exploring other possibilities, and if you sell them hard enough, sometimes you can get those companies too. I don't know. It is an interesting development that's started to happen with us anyway.
So at the end of the program, demo day, how many of the companies go for angel funding versus VC funding? Do you have any kind of stats, at least based on the companies that have gone through?
Because VCs have moved so much later, I feel venture capitalists have moved later and later because there's this great infrastructure of angel investors out there. Some VCs will make seed investments and things like that. But because of that, I would say a majority are angels. But at demo day, it's about 50-50. We have 50% are about venture capitalists at the event, and 50% are angels. So it's a good balance.
As angel investors, we're used to seeing the typical convertible note with a 20% discount. As an accelerator, what kind of stake are you taking in the company?
For about 6% of a company.
Okay.
At the very beginning.
And are you taking board seats as well? Or?
Oh, no. God, taking 67 board seats, that would be just I would have no life. I don't, but I would have. Boards are tough. You really want to be able to help on a board level, and we would not be able to. So that's really our.
I want to switch a little bit and get your personal views about the venture industry, trends in the venture industry, and also in the tech industry. I mean, having come from a family of venture capitalists who are really good at putting together new VC models and picking trends, picking companies. I mean, you guys invested in Skype and Hotmail, right? Your father, right? Yeah, your dad did, right? Yeah. So obviously, we'd like to get your views as well. So let me start off with the venture industry first. Sure. There was a report by Kleiner Perkins maybe 2-3 years ago, and which talked about venture capitalists averaging about 10% on their return, and that was across the industry. Mm-hmm. And if you took out maybe the top 8 to 10 performers, the numbers were not so great.
Yeah, you might as well have bought.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them were actually losing money at almost negative 30%. So what's your view on where do you see the whole venture model headed? Are we going to see a lot of new different type of financing models? Or this?
Well, I'll coin a phrase right now. The difference that happened between then and now was now there are mega funds. Like, people are raising billions of dollars, and it's way more difficult to return billions of dollars than it is to return $100 million. And I think returns were better when the larger funds were raising $100 to $125 million. I think statistically, I remember reading this article that Kleiner was listed in, and it was statistically, that was the best time, was when they were raising $125 million. But in order to get the best deals, they want a bigger fund. You want to be able to just sort of buy victory. So I think that's sort of one of the major changes in the venture industry that's really happened. And then also what's starting to happen, at least Silicon Valley is like, it's a little bubble here. I don't know if you guys get out much, but we have a little bit of a
There's nothing out there, Adam.
Yeah, one of us. It's just there's so much competition on the investor front right now because there's so much money around here. You know, Facebook went public, Twitter went public, WhatsApp was bought. There's like tons of just money. And so that drives up valuations. That drives up the number of potential angel investors. And so that drives up the amount of capital that can be going towards these startups. A lot of people really want to become angel investors to be able to support the next generation WhatsApp for something else.
Yeah, I'm just getting your views on where you think the venture industry is moving. And do you think the smaller to mid-sized VCs, are they going to survive with all this movement going on?
Well, it's always a cycle. Like, venture and private equity go into 7-year cycles. Like this, and it's I can't draw it in the air, but like there's an overlap of 7 years when like venture really takes off, and I would include angels in that spectrum, and then like venture goes down and private equity goes up, and then venture goes up, private equity goes down. People say that venture is like going downhill a little bit, but or I think it's going through a change, and because of the internet, because now you can sort of crowdfund, because of these different cool technologies that are really starting to take off and people are starting to use more casually. It is going through a change, but it's always going to be here. It's been around since Christopher Columbus raised from Queen Isabella, the ultimate fundraise. Like, I'm going to go across the Atlantic and see what's out there.
Was that a 20% convertible note?
I think it was much more favorable for Isabella. On
behalf of the audience and myself, I really want to thank you for giving us your time, sharing all these details about Bitcoin and accelerator model and everything. I also want to recognize the Draper family. They're truly a gift to Silicon Valley, and they've done so much in terms of innovation and helping build the valley. I look forward to hearing about your Bitcoin investments and hopefully see you flying around in an Iron Man suit someday.
Oh, yeah.
Great,
well,
thank you.
2 years I'm planning on having a whole session dedicated to Iron Man suit parts. So 2 years.
Great.
2 years.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And my email address is adam@boost.vc if anyone wants to email me. I reply to all emails, sometimes a little later, but I read them all. So, yeah.
Excellent, great. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.